Jy luister na Isak Du Plessis op Nuuspod.
Good day and welcome to Nuuspod, and I have with me in my virtual studio, I have the Deputy Ambassador of Israel, and it's Adi Cohen Hassanov, and welcome to Nuuspod, our online Afrikaans news channel here in South Africa, Adi.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you for inviting me.
And the reason I want to talk to you, well, who could have guessed? But this weekend's invasion of Israel, the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has warned of a long and a difficult war lying ahead after this shock incursion into Israel on Saturday by Hamas fighters from the Gaza Strip. And at the moment, this whole situation is picking up momentum, and we want to talk to you about it because somehow or the other, it also is of importance to South Africa. And like the whole world nowadays, everything is of importance. Adi, where are we now? What is the situation at the moment? I'm talking to you on Wednesday, 11 October, 4 o'clock. What's the current situation?
So, Isaac, before I will reply to Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech, it is important to elaborate about the situation, because you said it is important to South African, but let me maybe correct you by saying it's not supposed to be important only to South Africans. It's supposed to be important to any human being that does not support terror. And I'm talking about any normal person in the world. Now, the situation is the following. On Saturday morning, which is Saturday is a holiday in Israel. Besides of being a weekend and a holiday, it was also that specific day is the day that we call it Simchat Torah. It's the day where we're supposed to gather together in synagogues and shuls and to start to read the Torah from the beginning. It means that you had a lot of families together at houses. In a separate event, we also had a big party, a rave of approximately 3,000 young people that were celebrating in this area. In the morning, there was a terror attack when terrorists penetrated in Israel. They arrived into the kibbutzim and the cities and the villages that are around the Gaza Strip. They killed, as far as we know now, we found up to now 1,200 bodies of Israelis. There are also foreign nationalities. We know now about 14 Americans. The majority of the casualties are civilians. There are also soldiers, but the majority are civilians. We're talking about small villages. And in those villages, usually it was families. Everybody knew each other. It was big families. And we're talking about full families that were slaughtered for no reason. Just yesterday, a foreign correspondent entered to Kfar Aza, we call it, another village in the area, and they found 40 babies, bodies of 40 babies that were slaughtered. If it's not enough, ever since Saturday, we're experiencing over 5,000 rockets that are being shooted into Israel. As we speak, my parents are inside the security room because they're in the 40 kilometers range around Gaza Strip. Now, you asked me about Prime Minister Netanyahu press release about ongoing war. If your country and your people are under attack, you will do whatever it takes to keep them safe and to prevent the next attack. And if it's not enough, more than 150 Israelis were kidnapped into the Gaza Strip. It's 150 people approximately, might be more, that we don't know where they are. Among them, there are women, elderlies, babies. We know at least about one Holocaust survivor, which is over 80. We know that those age you need medicine. We don't know if the babies if they're feeding them, if they have formula. We don't know what's going on with the women. They were in the rave that I was talking about. They found 250 dead bodies, half burned, in the field of a party. I've been to some parties in my life. This is not how a party looks like.
Eddie, the reason why this happened, were you able to establish that yet? How did it come to happen? Because all over the world, we've come to know Israel army is one of the best, their intelligence to be one of the best. How did it happen that it is such a big surprise?
Are you talking about the reason for the attack or the reason for the surprise?
For the attack, yes. And how did it happen that Israel intelligence missed that?
So I think that your question is correct, and it's a question that should be asked, but not at the moment, not while we are counting the bodies and we're talking about our friends and families that are part of our soul and body. Those questions will rise, but not now. And if you're asking about the reason for this vicious attack, first, any reason is not good enough. That's for start. And whoever will say that this is a normal response or this is an unsurprising response, they need to check their moral compass. I mean, they need to check their values, because there is nothing in the world that will justify a murder of, for example, two parents that saved their 10 months babies, that after the parents were murdered, the 10 months babies left alone for 14 hours until the army came and released them. If we're talking about who attacked, so Hamas, which is a terror organization that was funded as an organization with extreme ideology that is calling for a jihad. A jihad is a holy war against Israel, against the Jewish people. This is what they stand for. We're not talking about the Palestinians. The Hamas are not representing the entire Palestinian nation. They are not. Hamas is a terror organization that does atrocities that we've seen only during the ISIS times. And now that people from South Africa maybe see what ISIS in Mozambique, those are the only places that you can see this kind of views.
How does this affect the situation regarding the different areas involved here? Hamas in charge of the Gaza Strip, but there's also the West Bank. How does it affect the dynamic at the moment, focusing on Gaza now, what's happening in West Bank?
So it is very important, as you said, to make this definition in between, to separate in between those two areas. Because if we're looking at Gaza Strip, which Israel has withdrawn in 2005, and ever since we don't sit there, it's a border with Israel. So between 2005 and 2006, there was the PLO, the Palestinian Authority. They held Gaza. And then in 2006, there were elections. From 2007, Hamas is controlling the Gaza Strip. For 18 years, they had no elections. They had no investment in their population. They are using the people there for their purposes, which we said before, the purpose is the jihad against Israel. The Palestinian territory which is managed by the Palestinian Authority, is in, as we said, is in the Palestinian territories. And we proved in the past that we know how to communicate with them. This is two different, and it's important to make this separation, because we see here from in many places that people that want to identify with the Palestinians, they're having a hard time to condemn the actions of Hamas. And they need to understand, condemning terror doesn't affect your feelings about the Israel and Palestinian conflict, but you still have the moral right to say no to terror.
Are you in a full-scale war with Hamas at the moment?
Yes.
What does this mean? What will what do you want the outcome of this be?
The outcome is that we want peace, and we want our people back to Israel safe. At the moment, we have no communication with the Hamas. We don't know the situation of the people that they kidnapped. At the moment, there is still infrastructure of terror in Gaza Strip, and they're still firing missiles and rockets into Israel. And we will not allow it. We will not allow to have still Hamas terrorists who will fire rockets, and will not allow Hamas terrorists to risk our country, to penetrate it again and to kill more civilians. And by the way, I think it's a natural right of every country to defend itself. Not right, sorry. It's a duty, it's an obligation of the country to their citizens to keep them safe and to do whatever it takes to keep them safe. The state of Israel is existing only 75 years. Up to 1948, we were scattered all over the world. We didn't have a place. In the Holocaust, 6 million Jews were murdered. The only thing that we have is the state of Israel, and we will fight for it, and we will defend it, and we will defend the people that live there, no matter what will happen.
The following question might seem not very sympathetic, but it is not meant without sympathy. It's a question of logistics and what you are able to do. You talk about Israel as a 75-year-old state. This conflict comes along 75 years. What I know of Gaza is a strip of land that's it looks like after doomsday, and most people are living underground, and this fight is forever going on. Will this war really be the final thing that breaks the camel's back?
I think it's a question to ask the Hamas. You say that the entire Gaza Strip are living in tunnels. I want to correct you, and we're talking about attack tunnels. From those tunnels, which were dug into the territory of Israel, just in order to release terrorists. And it happened before.
Yes.
It happened ever since Hamas can say that they took over the Gaza Strip. So if that will be the end, we will keep on responding. We will not sit like ducks and wait to be killed. If it will be hit, we will defend ourselves.
In South Africa, we hear stories like Hamas fighters shooting missiles from schools in the Gaza Strip, sort of luring an Israeli attack, and then declare, look at Israel shooting at a school. Are those stories true?
Those stories are very correct. Not only firing from school, also firing from mosques, also firing from UN facilities. And we have seen it, and I will be more than happy to share with you some pictures that we have and we are using to show it to the world. We have no intention. We are not in a war with the people of Gaza. We are in a war with the terrorist organization. And it is important also to mention that IDF, the Israel Defense Force, is working on a method that they have a bank of targets. Those targets are targets that were identified as places, as we said, attack tunnels, as rocket launch sites, as control centers of the Hamas. Those are the targets that we are working on. There's also a method that calls, I'm sorry for the lame translation, but knock on the roof, that says that before the IDF is before the IDF strike those targets, so they let the civilians know, please go away, because we know that the Hamas is using them as human shield. As they're using the people of Gaza, now they will use the hostages from Israel as human shield.
There are accusations of Iran being involved in this attack. Do you have an official opinion about this?
Well, look, Iran's ideology regarding Israel is well known in the world. They're standing on any stage that will allow them to speak, to say that Israel has no legitimacy to stay, to be a country, that they want to erase the state of Israel from the map. And we hear it on and on and on. The Hamas published videos, not us, they did it on themselves, where you see terrorists thanking other countries for funds, for ammunition, for the training. This is an operation that you need a lot of money. You need to understand, if you have been to Israel, you would know how hard it is to go through this border. You need a lot of resources to do that. And we know that the Hamas is using the only resources that they have, which usually is being by donations or by sometimes by work permit that we allow them to come to work in Israel. And they use those resources not to build water, infrastructure, not to fix the electricity, not to do that. No, that Israel does. Israel supplied electricity and water up until the war to Gaza. But they're taking this money and they're building missiles with that. And we know for sure that Iran, they said it themselves, you don't need me to say that Iran is being sponsored them and Iran is supporting them in those actions.
The other question that I want to ask, that should have been asked when I asked a question about what's happening in the West Bank, the dynamic in Jerusalem at the moment, in the current situation. Jerusalem also being divided into different parts. How does this current situation affect life in Jerusalem itself?
So I can talk very long about Jerusalem. I was born and raised in Jerusalem. I think it's the most wonderful city and beautiful city that you will ever see in your life. But it's also, we have in Jerusalem a very delicate a texture of living. Today, I think 3 hours ago, we saw that there was a terror attack, a terrorist shot over cars, and one person was injured. So we don't say officially that, there is an escalation. There is a tense situation. There is a tense situation because we are at war. And Israel is very tiny. Israel is in the size of Kruger Park, with approximately 10 million people. So every movement in the north, in the south, in the center affects everything. We also keep in mind that also we are looking at the north, because ever since the 8th, we are experiencing some provoking from Hezbollah, from Lebanon, and from Syria. So we always have to be very alert to all the borders around Israel.
Our government immediately sided with Palestine. Some of the ministers saying that Palestine or that the land should belong to the Palestinians from the sea to the river. We all know what that means. How do we as South Africans must understand the situation in that region?
I haven't read this specific quote. I read others. But yeah, South Africa and Israel are not seeing eye to eye when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And by the way, South Africa is not the only country that holds those opinions. With that being said, as I said before, there are two things to remember. Hamas is not representing the entire Palestinian population. They are not. There is the Palestinian Authority. And this is another debate that I'll be happy to do in another day.
Yes.
But we're talking about Hamas at the moment.
I understand.
And the second thing is that we need to remember, again, that there is no reason in the world that should be a good reason enough for those actions. No reason is good enough for terror.
Can one thus be simultaneously pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian in a situation like this?
I think it's not a matter of taking sides, because it's not even a political debate. We can do political debate with pleasure, but it's not a political debate. The debate here is about a terror attack. And I say it over and over again because it is important to put it on the table. There are places to do political debates, but it's not that. And wrapping rights of one nation and to excuse it with terror actions, I think it does harm to all sides involved. Israel has shown numerous of times in the past that we know how to speak with the Palestinian territory. With the Palestinian Authority, there were several of engagement and summit and some accords. And of course, I mean, the conflict is not come to an end. But we're not talking right now about this conflict. We're talking about a war with a terror organization.
I understand that. The reason why I'm asking the question is trying to determine how we on this side of the world should be able to understand the conflict. As you have rightly said, understanding that Hamas is different. It's not the whole Palestine nation. So we at the south of Africa, being very far away, not really understanding what's going on there. So I'm trying to determine what the bigger relationship between Israeli and Palestinian people are in a time like this.
Does it matter if you sit in the south of Africa or in Japan or in the north of Europe? Does it matter? Because when you see something that is breaking your heart, it doesn't matter what your nationality is. If you see a terror action, you should say no to that. You should condemn it. It doesn't matter what your political stand is, as Israel has done in the past for other attacks in the world. When ISIS took over hostages, Israel was on the front line saying that. I can also give you the example of the Ukraine and Russia conflict. It's very far from us, but still we had a stand. It doesn't matter where you sit. Your stand should be against terror. And it doesn't have a correlation with your political views.
That is Eddie Cohen-Hazanov. Thank you very much, Deputy Ambassador of Israel in South Africa. Thank you very much for making time for us, Eddie, and all the best for you and the people of Israel.
Thank you, Isaac. Toda rabah. Thank you for your time.
Keep well.
Jy luister na Isak Du Plessis op Nuuspod.